I'm a Louisiana native. But a few years ago, when I moved south into Cajun Country, I was served a family-sized dish of culture shock. The people here are just different. And in more ways than not, that's a good thing. It's a warm cultural climate, people are easygoing, fun-loving, and inviting, and man, can they cook. Part of that culture shock of moving south was I didn't know that men cooked. I mean, where I'm from, we grilled and fried meat, but we didn't throw down in the kitchen the same way that Cajun men do here. So when I had my first Cajun-style sauce piquant and that first Cajun-style rice and gravy, I just knew I had to learn how to cook like that. And though I've by no means mastered the art of Cajun cooking, each dish gets better every time. So in this video, I'll attempt to show you how to cook a Cajun rice and gravy. And I think you'll be surprised that it's not as difficult as it seems. You'll need some green onions, yellow onion, a green pepper, and a red pepper. You'll need some Cajun seasoning, and you'll need some quality meat. I went to Teet's Food Store and got some smoked pork sausage and some smoked turkey tasso. Throwing in just a little bit of jalapeno marinated bacon, and then some marinated breasted teal, which you can't always find at your local supermarket. You gotta get out there and go get it. And it's a little bit more costly this way, but it's a whole lot more fun. Sit. Go ahead, Will. So once you get all your meat, now you need a big old pot to throw everything in. As your pot starts heating, go ahead and start cutting everything up. Your bacon, your onion, and your sausage. You want to go ahead and start browning that sausage so you can start getting a grease made up. That's why I went with a pork sausage, so you have a little bit more to work with. So while you're browning your sausage, go ahead and cut up the rest of your meat and vegetables. And when you get that meat good and brown, go ahead and pull out the sausage, leaving the grease behind. So once I got that pork sausage pulled out, I went ahead and decided to drop my bacon in to add some flavor and some grease to the mix. Once you get that good and hot, go ahead and dump all your vegetables into the pot to start browning. And once you get that all good and brown, it's time to start adding your meats. I start with my teal because it's going to need the most time in the pot to get tender. And while my teal was cooking, I went ahead and started browning my tasso in a separate pot because I wanted it to brown first and not to boil. Once I got my tasso and my duck brown to my liking, I went ahead and mixed the two. Then after mixing the two, I added my sausage into that mix. And from this point on is the reason why I stated at the beginning of the video that cooking a Cajun rice and gravy is not as hard to cook as I imagined. You simply let it cook down, add some water, stir, and repeat. You'll need about 10 to 30 minutes in between each repeated cycle, depending on how high your heat is set. But you want to cook it down to almost burning, where you have to kind of scrape the bottom each time you add water. This is where your flavor's at. For me, cooking came a little bit later in life, sometime in my mid-20s. And it didn't start solely because I tasted some good Cajun food. That was a factor. I mostly didn't cook because I just simply didn't know how. And that was enough for me to never start. But as I started hunting more, started tasting more, and truly started to think more, and I'll link an article by Desiring God that impacted me down below, the more I wanted to know how to cook. So I started kind of studying. I watched a few local Cajun men as they were throwing down in the kitchen. And I studied until I worked up the nerve to take a chance and kind of ruin some meat. And so if you're a hunter, you know how big of a deal that is. But when it comes to hunting, the follow-through is essential. The thrill of the hunt is just one part of the process. But as a whole, there's the scouting, the hunting, the killing, the tracking, the processing, the cooking, and ultimately the fellowshipping. So when we consider 1 Corinthians chapter 10, where Paul says, whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God, we ought to do all these things to the best of our ability and also try to improve our ability. We ought to want to be better in every endeavor as a means of glorifying the God who made us. Possibly becoming more prayerful as scouters, becoming more ethical as hunters, more conservative in our processing. And knowing it was God who created seasoning and taste buds, we ought to aim to become better cooks. Always hoping that in our fellowship, in the end, the name of Christ is praised. So I hope this video was helpful for you in learning how to cook a Cajun rice and gravy. But beyond that, I hope that you are encouraged to be better for the glory of God.